Hey everybody, welcome to the Shield of Hope channel. I'm Donnie Shields, and joining me today is Gianna Tuggle. And she has been in law enforcement, she has acted, and she's here today to give us kind of a life update, but just being a good friend in general, it's going to be good to catch up because I think the last time we did this podcast, Gianna, it was like 2022. I mean, it was right somewhere after COVID. I think you've been on twice.
But still in the academy then.
Well, you're outside the academy now. And so one of the things, in light of the Charlie Kirk assassination, I did have plans to have somebody else, a life counselor and a therapist, come on to talk first about the Charlie Kirk situation. But I think Gianna is a perfect guest to talk to about this because she has worked in law enforcement and what kind of goes on, whether it's at the start of a crime scene, towards the end of the crime scene. She's been around a lot of things and she's got some stories to tell. So I think we should dive in first, G, with just a simple life update. What have you been up to in the past, 3 years? There's some big news.
3 years. Well, I was working as a constable deputy at the constable's office precinct 4 in Harris County in Texas. After about 3.5 years, I quit and moved to Pennsylvania, which is why I'm here. And I started taking my real estate classes. So now I'm just kind of on the real estate journey. I don't know, maybe I'll go back to law enforcement, and I've been getting back into acting a little bit, so we could talk about that.
You know, it's quite different, though, because you named 3 things, all of which don't coordinate with each other.
Not at all.
So, obviously from a kid, I had known you back when we went to youth group.
Right.
So I think that's the first time we first met up in Hazleton. You had always had aspirations to be an actor.
Right.
When did you have the aspiration to jump into law enforcement? Was it around the same time?
Oh, well, Hazleton's not the best area, but I guess growing up, because I didn't live out in the farmland, I was more in the city in Hazleton, so there was a lot of crime near me. I always kind of was interested in law enforcement. I didn't know if I wanted to be a police officer. I actually wanted to be a crime scene investigator, more along the lines of if there was a car and there were tracks in the road, can I get the DNA off the tracks and stuff like that. But then when I started going to school for criminology and I had a forensics lab, it was interesting, but I guess I just wanted to be in the heart of chasing suspects and more of the adrenaline kind of thing and getting the bad guys instead of just behind the scenes. So, but I mean, you do all of that anyway as patrol, so I guess it was high school. I started to shift a little bit, but I always wanted to do both. I just thought that acting wasn't really a security blanket, so I switched to the other side. So
you took that, you went through the academy.
Yep.
And then you entered the police force, and all of it was down in Texas, is that correct?
Yes, Houston. So Houston. Harris County is the whole city of Houston, but it's actually the 3rd most populous county in the United States, so it was pretty big.
Yeah. And you have a lot of stories, I imagine, to talk about.
Yes.
One of the things, so we'll jump to Charlie Kirk's assassination. We won't go through it. I personally, audience, haven't watched the video. I don't want to watch the video of the assassination. I was thankfully spared from that video because I was on the road driving for 3 straight days. So I haven't had time. I didn't have time to check my phone. All I could do is listen to the podcast. But obviously, being that it's a crime scene and Gianna, they had moved the body, so it makes it a little bit hard to do that, but they were still hopeful that they could save him, so they had to rush him to the ER where he was pronounced dead, but he was most likely dead there at the scene. So take us through, because you said you've been on a few crime scenes. So how do they lock it down? What's the process of collecting all the information and data?
Just because from a supervisor's perspective, because I was promoted before I left and I had to learn kind of how that all worked. When you're going to a scene like that and you get a call that someone's been shot, immediately your reaction is whoever is at the scene. Doesn't matter if it's a school officer, whatever officer is there needs to lock down the scene until we can get usually they have a command post where they'll have every officer, come off to the side of a parking lot or something, and you'll get your assignments there. But you get whoever's there and they tape up everything. In this case, I think even though he was shot, under that little tent, the whole scene is the entire parking lot where that event took place. That's the entire scene. So in that case, you got to lock down everything. And usually, as soon as the second officer gets there, someone is supposed to stay with the body. So wherever the body goes, the officer goes. Now, because it was moved, he was, a really influential person. So they were really trying to save his life, even though he was probably gone before that. But because the body was moved, first officer usually stays with the body and makes sure no one kind of tampers with it. Nothing was going on behind there. And then the second officer, like I said, tapes up everything. And then, you're supposed to secure all of your witnesses. So as many people as you can get to stay at the scene that saw what happened, that's what you do. And then, you secure all of your other people who was in charge of him. And then you have someone, we call it an entry exit log. Whoever comes from the scene and goes from the scene, there's an officer standing there writing that in the book. And then you have someone staying with the evidence, and then you pull out the markers and someone marks all the evidence. And then you have the crime scene photographer come and he takes pictures. And then you have someone call the medical examiner's office and call the CSU. It's a really long process, and it's actually a lot more people involved than people think it is, because as you're doing all this, you need to have that one person, which usually you designate one supervisor, to call the other supervisors above them and let them know what's going on. And then as you have that going on, you have media coming in, and you can't have media coming into your scene and messing with anything, because then, a story gets out into the world and it might not be what you need it to be at the moment to figure out what's going on. So in this case, it was big. They called the FBI, they called state troopers, they called whoever they could, because they just wanted to get the guy. But, you got to have all of your witnesses, which, like, they surveillance the neighborhood and got the Ring cameras, and that's kind of how they caught the guy. So that was a good job on them, but it's a lot more detailed than people think it is.
And it takes a lot of time, I would imagine, to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the first thing I thought about, and this is kind of messed up, but, I was sad, but the first thing I thought about was, whatever officers are there are not going to sleep until they find that guy. Because even at a lower level, when an officer gets shot, nobody goes home until somebody is found. So, the hard work that they put into that is just, props to them, because that's a long time.
I think they said 30 some hours is what it took to get this guy.
Yeah, and it's a bigger scale. So, it's not just county or state. It's somebody extremely famous who, is in politics, so it's a lot.
And you talk about locking the area down. I was like, when you got thousands of people too,
it's
and
hard.
There's a lot of people fleeing at that time, and there's people running panicked and scared. You can only imagine. I know the mainstream media, again, from experience how hard it is to lock down scenes and the time it takes. The media comes on and acts like, oh, the police didn't do their job, the FBI didn't do their job, and it took 30 some hours, and the media's over here well, they should have had them sooner. And they're like, how dare you? I guess they're saying that Kash Patel went out and actually had dinner one night, and they're like, he wasted 2 hours or whatever. One of the things that I always found more interesting was this seemed like a typical timeline for me. I was like a day or two to figure out all this information, get the surveillance cameras. I was more shocked because I was back in school when the Boston bombings happened.
Right.
And that was, I believe, 2012, I think, if I'm not mistaken by the year. But I remember that happened early in the morning. And by noon, 1 o'clock, they announced that it was 2 Russian puppet country gentlemen that came in with the bombs. Yeah. And I was like, man, that's a lot of footage to go through and find in 3 hours.
I don't know if you watched that movie, but the way that they had gotten that guy was insane. They went through every single building and got every camera footage that they possibly could.
Yeah, but that was a lot for a 3-4 hour turnaround. And I was like, that's crazy to me. And I was just I'm thinking to myself, I was like, okay, that seemed a little bit rushed back then. That was a little bit suspicious on my end, because I was like, 3 hours to catch somebody.
It was really short. But the thing that I kind of think that people forget about is, as a police officer, when something happens like that on your computer, you get an alert, and it's called a citywide assist. So they call in every department that they could in the area, because from a police officer's perspective, if I'm sitting in the car and something like that happens, my first thought is he only going to shoot Charlie Kirk, or is this a mass murder? Is he going to start killing other people? He or she, at the time, you don't know. So it's we got to protect thousands of kids now. How many officers can we get? You know what I mean? It's you got to get there. You got to get your long rifle out. You got to get everything locked down, as many people safe as you can. And the scary part is the suspect could be in the crowd and pretending to be one of the students, and you would have no idea.
Yeah.
So that's just my take on it, is that people don't think about that. All they thought about was he got shot, which again is super sad, but from an officer's perspective, it could have been other people if they didn't catch the guy, or that's kind of all you're thinking about. Mm-hmm. So
And when there's not more activity afterwards, it's clearly just a one-person attack,
Right.
which, obviously that was always one-person attack the way the first bullet went.
Right.
But, you're thankful that it wasn't like I think, what was it, the Nashville?
Yeah.
Like the Nashville crowd where he just opened fire on the concert. Was that Nashville or was that Las Vegas?
Are you talking about Las Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Nashville had a bombing a few years ago on Christmas Day, and they blew up some of the downtown. Luckily, nobody was there, but that was, I think, because there was a voting going on for the election. So, but the Las Vegas one was scary because I think they said that the shooter was in a guest hotel room shooting from a window, and he was just hitting everybody. But, like I said, in this case, at the time of the shooting, you don't know if they're going to go after other people because you don't know the motive. Like, what if they just wanted to make a statement, So, thank God they didn't go after anybody else. But
what was the biggest crime scene you were ever on? How many typical officers respond? I know that you said that, like, obviously there's a lot. There could be the FBI, there could be State Department, there could be local. But, like, what's the biggest crime scene you've been on?
The biggest, that's hard to say because I was at a bunch of shootings. I would say one of the memorable ones was a shooting I went to at my first station. A little girl had been shot. Actually, I could start from the beginning. I'm not going to say names, but if you'd like to hear the story, I can tell you. So we got dispatched to a call. We called an 01 in progress. It just had people calling from like an apartment complex, but it was one of those ones where the doors to the apartment were inside. So there was no like outside stairwell. It was just kind of one big building. And they just said that they heard shots. They didn't know who it was. Then we got a call, I think, from a family member of the person that had been shot saying that, their granddaughter called them and said that they were being shot at. So when we got there, we knew that people had been shot because my sergeant had found the room. And he walked up to the door and he heard somebody say, "She's dead." And then we were like, oh, crap. So we're all going in there. There's this apartment complex was really... It was like a maze in there, so it was really hard to find the rooms. One room was like 530, and then you'd have 220. It made no sense. So whoever made that place, it sucked. But we eventually found it, and the ambulance couldn't get up there because they couldn't find the room either. So there was about, I want to say 5 of us at the beginning. It was like me, 2 sergeants, 2 deputies, and then I think our investigator was there. So when we got to the room, the sergeant eventually got in. I believe the hotel manager was able to get the key because it was a metal door. We couldn't kick it down. We went in. We saw 2 bodies on the floor. It was a mom and a daughter. The mom we tried to save, she was already gone. The daughter was still surprisingly alive. The messed up part was I was surprised because she had been shot 4 times, and one of them grazed her forehead. Then we searched the rest of the apartment and we found a 3rd body, which so happened to be the shooter. It was the boyfriend of the mom. So not the daughter's dad, but the boyfriend. I guess they were by the door because their bodies were kind of blocking the door because I guess the boyfriend and the mom got into an argument. The boyfriend got upset. He started shooting at them. They were trying to run out of the apartment. They made it to the door. That's as far as they got. So unfortunately, the mother died, the boyfriend died, and the little girl lived. This was, I believe, last year, I want to say 2024 in June, and the girl was still in the ICU till November, as of November. That's all I know. But that crime scene, the media was there. It was a pretty big one because it was so many people that were shot, not just one person. We had a lot of people there. We had captains coming from other stations, it was a lot going on. But so after we found the bodies, me, my sergeant, a deputy, and one of my corporals, we picked up the little girl. We tried to put a chest seal on her because she had 1 in the chest, 2 in the leg, 1 in the lower abdomen, and then the one that grazed her forehead. The chest seal was not working because it was a through and through bullet. So my sergeant ended up picking her up and carrying her down 4 flights of stairs. We carried her out to the ambulance. Once the ambulance got there, they had to life flight her. And that was a big thing, actually, because it's hard to get life flight to land. We were right by a toll road, and there was a lot of cars around. And because it was it's a city, it's very packed. So the hospital actually ended up giving us an award. The Life Flight people nominated us, and said that if we did not bring her down there, she would not have lived because she had seconds left. The only reason she lived was because I think she was in shock. She didn't know what was going on, but she ended up telling me the story. It was hard to get it out of her because she couldn't breathe that well. And then actually the rodeo gave us, all 4 of us, first responder of the year. So that was nice, but I just hope she's okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the bigger ones. The other big ones I would say are the ones where officers get shot, because we had a guy a few years ago. He was getting pulled over by a police officer. Pretty sure he was smoking marijuana. He was a wanted felon. So when the officer came up to the door, I think he was in the car with his brother. I think it was his brother. And the officer, I guess he might have seen the marijuana or smelled it, and he said, I'm going to search the car. The guy was still in the car when he was searching. I don't know why he didn't ask him to get out. I wasn't there, so can't really speak for the officer. But when the officer went to the back door and opened it, the guy reached behind the passenger seat and shot him. He was shot in the neck. Luckily, he lived, but we had gotten so many calls from just people passing him by saying that an officer had been shot in the neck, and that was like one of the worst calls I've ever heard in my life. And his twin brother actually also worked for the sheriff's office, and I believe he was the first person on scene. But the felon got away, and the next day, I mean, literally within an hour, we had U.S. Marshals at the guy's girlfriend's house. I mean, it was a big thing. They had a command post. The state troopers were there. They had all departments involved, anybody that could go. And then the next day, they found him on a different side of the city. But he was staying with a friend, and he ended up shooting 3 more officers, all different departments. All of them lived, but that was a really big thing. They had to get the SWAT team out there. The SWAT team had to smoke him out. And I think he ended up giving up because I'm pretty sure he got shot. But he lived. But they got him. But that was a really big scene. Anybody that could go, they called a citywide assist on that. So pretty much when anybody, when it comes from your own house, it's a big deal.
Now, there's been instances like in Berwick, we had a brother back in the high school find one of his brothers had hung himself.
Oh, that's sad.
So being somebody that's relative that finds somebody that's either dead or dying, or has been in an accident, I can't imagine being the brother that was the first to respond to the scene.
I mean, it's terrible seeing it when you're not family,
Yeah.
so I can't even imagine either. It's just hard to see.
Yeah. And I guess Kirk's wife and kids were in the audience that day too, which is just, if we want to talk about, there's a lot of positives to talk about the social media era, but one of the negative things about the social media era is that footage is going to be on there forever. And his kids are going to potentially run across that. And, the first thing that it reminded me of, if anybody remembers the story of Steve Irwin, how he died, they were actually filming an episode at the time, and he got hit by the stingray through the heart.
Yeah.
So there was actual footage of that. Now, they had burned the tapes. That's what they said. They had watched it as soon as they all got reviewed, went through law enforcement, all this other stuff like that to confirm this what happened. They eventually burned the tapes, but you could still find the video online. So I can't imagine his kids watching that footage of just wildlife taking the father out gruesomely.
Right.
I was like, now you got these kids that have to grow up with this video.
Now you have it screen recording. Even if you delete it, it's out there somewhere. So
yeah.
But I just think that's when people take pictures or videos, I mean, there's no controlling that because you didn't know someone was going to get shot. But I think that's the most disrespectful thing to do to someone that's dying or is already dead, It's just terrible.
This is off topic too, but it's talking about gruesome and morbid. I never understood why people take pictures of people when they're dead either. And it could be family too. There was at my grandmother's funeral, it was always oh, let's take a picture of holding her hand for the final time, she's gone. I was to me, it's you're holding the hand of a corpse.
Yeah.
There's something about that. I don't know. Maybe you guys have done it in the family. I don't know.
No, it's if I were gone, I don't think I would want people taking pictures of me or holding. I'd be like, no, please do not do that.
Yeah. I think about Chadwick Boseman Boswick, Black Panther. So I think of him pretty often because when he announced that, or like when there was rumors about he was going through cancer treatments,
Right.
you still saw him as Black Panther. You know, that was like really the last big role that you saw him in and how he looked. They really hid like the after pictures of how bad it really got.
Oh, they did.
So I was
quick.
So like to me, I was just like, you know, we went out remembering him, how he looked on, you know, on screen,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a blessing. Because I'm the same way. If I'm gone and I'm dead, or like I'm really old and I'm decrepit and I'm dead, like I'd rather people go out remember me how I was, rather than that being my last picture.
Right. That's how I feel. I think, and even like, you know, I had a grandfather pass away, and he used to say the same thing. He didn't want people to come see him because he wanted them to remember him how he was, not how he ended up being.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd want that at all.
I joke with my parents. Now, I'm not, you know, in the Christian faith, you're not really like, there's a split between, do you want to be cremated? Should you be cremated, or should you be buried like with the body? And I told my mom, I was like, I don't believe in cremation, but I want to go out with the old Viking send off.
That'd be cool.
I want the raft and then the flaming arrow. That's
I think
what
that would be really cool. It'd be very
I think
cinematic.
it'd be epic.
Very cinematic.
The only time I want something recorded that's like my funeral, just
Yeah, you're like,
that'd be
please,
great.
somebody get something out of this.
Send the arrow. You know, if you gotta hire the best archer though, because you gotta be like so far out, and you get one opportunity. You know,
you gotta get Steven from the arrow.
Yeah. I just want one opportunity. You know, just hit it once. Once you start floating out there, I was like, well, you're gonna have to shoot farther, and then yeah.
I actually love that show, The Arrow. It's one of the better ones.
Arrow was good. Arrow was good up through season 4. Most TV shows, season 4 is kind of like the tipping
Yeah,
point.
that's kind of
because in the
you
writers
either
room,
make it or break it.
they always tell you in the writers room they plan for 3 seasons.
Right.
Now some only make it 1 season, some make it like 17 seasons, but like they plan for 3, and it really seemed like it with this show. Now, granted, they had a lot of different properties to go because they had The Flash then, and they had some other stuff.
Oh, I love The Flash.
And The Flash was good, probably about a season or 2 longer as well, and then it started to go downhill.
Yeah.
Honestly, when they put Oliver Queen as mayor, it really just went downhill. I was like, there's certain characters, and as the Christian in me, I feel like this is awful, but I was like, he's a character of vengeance. Like, he has always been that way from the island and everything else like that. So when they tried to like hype him up in like more of a political and be like, you need to be like, we're not going after our enemies anymore. I was like, no, that is you though. I was like, you need to continue to go after your enemies. I was like, that is your character.
You know, my fiance said the same thing. He like was really, I guess, when they started The Flash and they started doing those crossover episodes, Barry was kind of telling him, you know, you can do it without killing, blah, blah, blah. And ever since Tommy died and he was called to killer, he wanted to change his ways. But my fiance is like, no, don't change. He's an anti-hero. Like, stay how you are. And I'm like, I mean, I guess, but he's killing people. So, but that's his character. That's what they built him off of. So I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about it because on one angle, he's trying to give people hope that he can change and something good could come out of something bad. But on another angle, I'm like, I don't know though, because that's kind of what everyone's thinking, you know?
And I thought too, which I'm slightly surprised of how it all ended. I thought there was better ways to wrap it up. So in actually one version of the DC comics, he actually goes out saving Batman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like that's how he dies. And I was like, you know what? And they had the show Batgirl at that point in time. And I was like, well, it's not, yeah, sure, they're probably swapping characters at this point. But I was like, it'd still be a cool tribute for him to go out saving Batgirl or even like a Superman or something. Like have him go out that way.
And then, you know how they foreshadow in those shows?
Yeah.
I saw, because I was watching The Flash not too long ago, and in one of them he had a lightning bolt and he was calling one of the villains, and he did exactly what Batman did. He put it in the light up on the roof, and then the one character, Cisco, they were asking him, they were like, man, that was a really good idea. Where'd you see that? And he goes, I don't know. I think I saw it in a movie once. So maybe they were trying to set it up that way and then they changed their mind. Who knows?
Yeah.
But,
well, I know Batgirl was slightly a failure and stuff like that. Just like, I guess this, what was it, Swamp Thing was like a one-off TV show. Do you remember that? Most of the stuff outside of the Flash and Arrow, like I really didn't watch the other stuff too much.
I wasn't a fan of Supergirl. I tried to watch it. It just didn't give me Flash or Arrow vibes. So I was like, I mean, their shows are good, but I'm just not into, you know, I'm not a big Supergirl, like superhero girl. Like, I don't like girls that are superheroes. I'm not a big fan. Some of them, okay, but like even with Marvel, Captain Marvel, I was not a fan.
Oh, she's awful.
Yeah, she was terrible. I was like, they could have made her character and depict it a totally different way and made it really good, and I feel like it just flopped.
The conspiracy theory online was that Captain Marvel was an illegitimate billion-dollar film when it came out. And everybody had talked about, all the YouTubers were like, when they went to go see it, they looked at their whole theater and it said it was full. Like everything was bought out and stuff like that. They get in the theater, there was only like 2 people there.
Really?
Yeah. And like that was like, and I can't remember when that came out. That had to be like 2019, 2018.
Yeah, that was like way back.
Everybody was talking way back then.
Well, I mean,
we're all aging.
I was still in high school.
Would you be in high school back in... No, you were in high school in 2018.
2018 is when I started college.
Were you 4 years behind me?
Yeah. Because I think you're my sister's age, and my sister is 4 years older than me.
Okay. I thought at least 2, but I didn't realize 4.
Okay, but you know what movie I thought was really good that did not get enough credit? Have you ever watched Shanghai, the Marvel movie with like the Asians and he gets superpowers?
Oh, with the rings?
Yes, I thought that movie was so good. I'm like, why did they not do more with this?
Well, they really wanted to amp up the Eternals, but that failed miserably.
But I know they were trying to mix it in with Doctor Strange because they kept switching back and forth, but I don't know.
Which I gotta say, Doctor Strange, outside the Deadpool Wolverine one, I still think Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness has been the best one that we've seen in a long time since. Now, a lot of people hated that movie. I actually love that movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the references and the fan, like bringing John Krasinski in as Reed Richards, I thought was like really cool. I think
people, unless they keep up with that stuff, they want to, because these people, they don't watch every movie in the universe and they're
not watching all the TV shows either.
And
which
that's
is
the
like
thing is it's more so. I feel like in Marvel and DC, they do it for the fans that are committed, and then the people that do like a one-off, they just watch it one time. They're like, oh well, I hated it, and it's like, but you don't watch the other ones, so you can't say that.
Yeah, but also you can't run a cinematic universe off TV shows either, and then expect it to translate to the film, because there's a lot more people that will watch the films than the TV series. So like that's one thing that Marvel has to realize.
Characters. Like it's a completely different person, which I hate when they do that. You know what else I hate? When a show gets rid of a character, but they keep the character, but they get rid of the actor, and then they try to bring in somebody else, and it's so clearly not the same actor. It's just like, just kill the character, just kill it. It's ruined for me now.
Yeah,
because the Fosters did that, and it really made me mad.
See, I didn't watch the Fosters.
I watched it for a few seasons, but once they did that, I stopped watching it. And see, that's what I mean. People stop watching when you do stuff like that. So,
What was it? It was Happy Days, I believe, where the expression came, "Don't jump the shark."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they made all these seasons, they didn't know what to do, and they went to the beach for one episode, and while he's surfing, he literally jumped the shark, and people were like, nope, we're done, because this is just stupid.
Unrealistic.
Where I was going with Captain Marvel, though, it's fascinating because, Captain Marvel back in 2018, 2019, when that came out, said to make $1 billion. And then obviously the hatred for Captain Marvel, they didn't make it Captain Marvel 2. They named it the Marvels. They included all 3 of them, and then only made like $300 million at the box office. You can't tell me that a $1 billion film then went on to make $300 million on the next one.
Yeah, they lost money. They definitely lost.
They've been losing money. Like, it is incredible the amount of money that they've lost, and they've not changed their ways.
I think ever since Phase 2, they have gone downhill, which is kind of sad because I actually really liked all of the Marvel movies, but they're just not that great anymore.
See, I can remember. Is Phase 2, like, did we get into the Infinity Gauntlet? Like, is that like...
Yeah, I think that was that the end of Phase 2 or Phase 3? I thought it was Phase 2.
Infinity War, to me, is still the best movie.
Yeah. When they went, I think going into Phase 3, so the new Spider-Man was like coming out of Phase 2, so he was still a part of it, I believe. And then when they went into Phase 3, he was supposed to be like the new face, but that's when it all started. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I thought Phase 2 was the best because that's, Phase 1 was the Hulk, Iron Man. They were bringing everybody up, and then it all came together. And now Phase 3 is just like, okay, well, they're trying to recreate something that already happened, and you can't change stuff on people. They just don't. People don't like change. Come on.
And they tried to pull back the Hulk reference with the new Captain America: Brave New World. Like, did you watch that movie?
No.
Brave New World. I wouldn't watch it personally.
It was bad.
It's so I describe it very much like Thunderbolts. It's been so long since we've had a good Marvel movie that everything looks like A's right now, but it's still a C tier.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Dear Lord.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Thunderbolts was not awful. I actually didn't mind the character Sentry. I like the void moments. Like the void moments, like showing the real, like what somebody could go through with depression and being like that flip of a coin, Jekyll Hyde. I like that. The issue just simply becomes they really push that Florence Pugh character too much. I'm sorry, but if we're gonna do like the leader of the Misfits, that's Bucky.
Right.
And Bucky was like a side character in this one. And I'm just like, you can't just have Bucky as a side character. Like, Bucky's going to control the screen.
There's a lot of side characters that should be main characters and they're not.
Yeah.
But people want to see more of them.
But then they push the ones that we don't like as the main characters.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
They need to listen to the audience more. I think that's what it is.
I think the branding of the new Avengers is an awful thing, too.
Right.
I can't believe they did that. And then I thought they were going to ruin Fantastic Four for us. Did you watch Fantastic Four?
No, but it actually looked really good. But also, I didn't mind the other Fantastic Fours. I actually thought, I think it was what is this, the fourth one now?
This is number 4. It's the third
I
reboot.
thought the third one was pretty good.
Like the one with Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan,
2015 one?
Chris Evans. I thought that was pretty good. Or was it Chris Evans? No. Chris Evans. Chris Evans was the second one. Or the third
Miles
one.
Teller. Was
Miles Teller. Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan, I thought that was the best one that they made. And I don't know why they just keep remaking them. I mean, this one's got it's the same story, different take, which it's kind of cool because it's more futuristic. But I don't know. I thought the other one was good. Like, they totally could have made this a sequel.
So personally to me, I grew up on the originals back in the early 2000s. So I'm going to always go with them.
Mm-hmm.
And plus Jessica Alba is just a babe and she's just awesome.
I do like Jessica Alba.
I mean, she's beautiful and she's awesome. So I still think, and this is where it's going to be different because I view the Michael B. Jordan one as the worst one of them.
Really?
I do, only because here's the thing, from a filmmaking standpoint, it was irritating to sit in the theater and it shows them as kids, which is cool because I was like, we never saw Reed Richard and Ben Grimm as kids, you know, whatever. And then they go through the scrapyard, they start showing they're scientific, they can build things.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do a black screen 7 years later. I'm like, okay. And then they show up at the science fair and stuff like that. And then they eventually go to space to get their powers.
Like, they should have shown more story as kids. Is that what you wanted?
Well, not just as kids, because it cut black screen 7 years later. And then they go into space and stuff like that after, and they go back to the science fair, get all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But then as they're assembling the team, like after they leave outer space and they get the superpowers, they come back. It goes to another black screen and it says 1 year later. And then they come back as a team.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm just like, the whole plot of the Fantastic Four is to show the team bonding. And I was like, now they're a team again. Like Reed Richards spent like a year in prison apparently because he was the only one that actually wanted to stay turned in.
That does kind of bother me when they do that. And I also don't like when movies cut the fight scene short. It's like they do one move and then the whole movie's over and you're like, that's it? They just did all of this build up to do one fight move and then it's done. I was like, they could have totally done more with that. But yeah, I didn't think it was the best cinematic film, but the actors in it I thought were really good. Like, they couldn't have gotten better actors.
Those actors were ahead of their time, and thank God that movie didn't ruin their careers.
Yeah, thank God.
Because some movies can ruin careers, and I got to tell you, I didn't think Miles Teller was that great of an actor in that one, but thank God for Top Gun Maverick hiring him again because he was fantastic.
I actually liked him when he was in all the comedies, and a lot of people didn't know him. I always thought he was great, but that's because the comedies were, a lot of those are unscripted, so he actually probably is naturally funny. So I don't know. I just thought he was a good actor. Because he was in Footloose, the new Footloose, and I thought that movie was really good.
And I'm just jumping on the bandwagon because I think Glenn Powell's the next day in Hollywood.
Oh my gosh, I love Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell is freaking phenomenal. And I don't know what it is. Now, granted, they were in the same rom-com together, but him and Sydney Sweeney, man, they're just, if you want to talk about trajectory, they're just going up
Chemistry
there.
Is...
Between chemistry and just their personalities and the looks, they're going to go farther in Hollywood. You just know.
Apparently they're talking about making a second one.
That'd be interesting. At least none of them.
I want to see it.
At least none of them have relationship issues now.
Yes. Okay, but I actually love Sydney Sweeney because she was in an interview talking about how she wanted to get her degree while she was acting, and she did. She went to college, but her professors did not like her because she missed a week of classes or something for The Handmaid's Tale. And I'm like, she missed a week. There's people that miss weeks because they're out drinking. But because she was an actress, they were all pissed off. But I'm like, come on. She builds cars. Who else can do that? And she's just very independent. She's a businesswoman. And that's kind of what I like about her. She's very smart.
And she has that boxing movie coming out, too. And she had released some trailers or some behind-the-scenes photos on that.
And that's based on a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because she did have to get kind of beefy for that. So
she's changed her appearance, which is just I wish Ben Affleck would take notes. Because every Ben Affleck movie I watch is just Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Whether it's Batman, it's Ben Affleck. If it's just it's Ben Affleck. Accountant 2, Ben Affleck. It's just okay, it's just Ben Affleck.
In all of them.
Yeah, actually, I am not a big rock fan, But his new one with being the what is it, the fighting machine or the smashing machine, like in that one,
yeah, I do
he
wanna see that.
like they changed
His
whether it's
face looks
prosthetics.
different.
Well, it's great because I was like, prosthetics will do that, but like he was willing to not look like The Rock.
To do
Finally,
that.
I'm just like, this is great. And I think the last time they actually did it was when he grew a mustache and did like Hobbs and Shaw or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was like, that's the first time he actually changed his looks. I was like, this is fantastic. Yes, thank you, The Rock.
And that's funny because I was watching the trailer and I'm going, is that Dwayne Johnson? And I'm like, I think it is. And then as soon as they showed his name, I'm like, holy crap, it is. But somebody else that does that is Channing Tatum. Or Zac Efron, for example, they shift their weights for movies, which I think is really cool. Like Sydney Sweeney, I love that she changed her look and then she just, I don't know, I guess they plan to do it. They can go back to the way that they look, which is probably what they do with their training coaches. But I just think that that's great. Like even her face, her hair was different. Like I like when they do that. So, because it's not just like when you're watching a movie, you want to get into the character, not just the actor behind it. And I feel like a lot of the times people think that, oh, well, you're watching the movie because this person's in it. And while that might be true, I want them to depict a different character, not be who you are.
Yeah.
So,
I just wish that Zac Efron didn't get the reconstructive surgery. I
actually heard his face started going back to normal, like the way that they did the surgery, I guess. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard that the way the surgeon did it was that it was going to change his face for a little bit, and then the way that it healed went back to normal. So I don't know if that's true because I have not looked up photos myself, but
yeah,
I heard that.
But right after it happened, like I was like, man, what? Like, here's the thing: some people don't like the aging process. I don't think any of us like the aging process. But
yeah, but when you're that,
I'm going to be very, very clear. When you are blessed with some looks and some good genes, and you
keep
still
them.
got time left, you keep them. Not this Hollywood mentality of like, we need to preserve it, so we need to do this and do that.
Well, I think he fell. Like he fell on his face.
Was it an accident though?
I don't know.
I thought he just woke up. Not saying he just woke up and made a life-changing decision, but I feel like it was just like he just did it.
I need to change my look, kind of. No, I think he actually fell on his face and like broke his nose or something. But it had something to do with his nose and his jaw. I know that because his jaw is drastically different. Yeah. But hopefully, I mean, he's still pretty, but not from his High School Musical days.
I mean, nobody looks like they did from back then. Like, that is, when you think about that, that was, what, 2008? Something like
2008
that?
2008 at least.
Jeez.
I think that, I don't know if the first one came out before that. I think it came out before that.
The fact that they did more Freaky Fridays now, like, you know, they had the reunion.
I wanted to see that, but I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it yet either, but I was like, that was like a Disney Channel exclusive film that came on. I'm just sitting there, like, I can remember tuning into the state, like, to the TV channel that night.
Oh, Lindsay Lohan. Funny fact about her, where I worked, her father lived in the area I patrolled.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, except him and her mother are divorced, so his new girlfriend caused a lot of drama. I do know that. I never went there, but I had friends that had to go there as supervisors, and they told me there was a lot of drama.
You know, I keep forgetting that Houston is actually a Hollywood kind of place sometimes.
There's a lot of rappers. There's a lot of rappers that go there. And honestly, country people too.
I can see that.
Yeah. But, yeah, I had a lot of friends that came across rappers as they were doing traffic stops. And not all of them were the nicest. Some of them were super nice, but...
Probably the worst place to find a rapper is a traffic stop.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like Houston's a very businessy area and everybody's always moving, which I like that about it. But it's also like people are just always pissed off. So everyone's angry.
Yeah.
If you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, be sure to follow along the Shield of Hope Productions social medias, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, or YouTube. Don't miss any of our podcast or short films. Now, back to our scheduled program.
We had talked about, at the start of the podcast, your inspiration and aspirations into becoming an actor. Now, recently, you had just sent in headshots to be considered for a role.
Right.
Okay, so you have when you hear something like that, like, okay, like I'm driven, I want to do these headshots and I want to potentially get these roles. And then you hear back from somebody. How exciting is that? Because let's talk about the excitement aspect of it first.
Yeah, you get really excited, almost like you clear your whole schedule and you just tell them I'm available the whole day, whatever you need. But yeah, it's very exciting. Then you kind of start putting in for other stuff. Actually, my mom and my sister, had been putting in for Nashville 911 because they live in the Nashville area, and that's filming over there. And then there's also a bunch of Hallmark movies filming for Christmas time right now in Nashville. So they had gotten into a few of those shows, but it is really exciting, especially when they bring up that you might be in a union, because it takes a lot of, you might have to do so many background things to get into the SAG union. So when you hear that a specific role might be able to put you in there, it's like really exciting.
Yeah. And then there's the downside about it when
you get disappointed.
You get disappointed.
When you don't get picked. Which actually is surprising because, you work for these companies and they're the ones that ultimately say this person might be good for that. And usually when they email you or text you, you usually get picked for it. Like there's not a lot of no's, but if it's something specific, not just background, and it's for like, a specific actress needs a double, or, it's a featured role, then they do start getting picky. So you can't really be getting your hopes up a lot of the time, I feel.
Yeah.
For stuff like that. For background, it's like most of the time it's a yes. But I don't know. There's just certain companies that, like I put in for to be a background actress on Outer Banks a bunch of times, and I still haven't got in. And I also signed up because the same company does Pretty Ugly, and I haven't gotten that either. But a lot of the times they're just looking for people in the area. Even if you say, I'll travel, I don't care. Like I know you guys won't pay for it, but I think they just want you to be there because sometimes they do overnight shoots, or they'll change the shooting time to maybe a day before, and if you're not there, then they don't have somebody. So I get it.
How much of the acting also relates? Because you said that you've been undercover a few times, for the police, so I don't know if that's a topic that you can even talk about.
Yeah, I can talk about it. It actually coincides. You really have to act your butt off. And I mean that because if for some reason they think you are not the person that you say you are, your life is in danger. So like with the Predators stuff, I mean, you really have to convince them, because when we do operations like that, they're usually a few days at a time, and you get several different departments in on it, and then it's the crime scene unit, what's it called? The tech crimes. They will come and they put it all together. But sometimes, you have other counties involved, or even the FBI, but you have to get on the phone with these guys because they're all signing up. So, and sometimes if you have the qualifications, they will have you be the chatter. Like they have chat ops kind of, and they sign up for all these different websites, Discord, Kick, Snapchat, pretty much anything. Omegle, which is an old one, but a lot of child predators are on there and it's disgusting. But so they have certain things that they have to say, and you do have to act, because once they get their attention, they'll say, I want to hear your voice, because a lot of them are skeptical that there are cops online. So they make sure that they call and hear your voice, or they'll do a video chat. So when you have to talk to these people, you have to say certain things to make it seem like it's their choice, to come and meet up, because ultimately it is their choice. And two, you can't say certain things to make it seem like you are luring them somewhere, which is, entrapment. You can't do that. And then, you also have to meet the elements of a crime. And when I say that, I mean in Texas, it's called the Penal Code Book, and it's all the criminal offenses and what you have to hit to get that offense. So when you're just like the prostitution stuff, if you're talking to, someone that wants an escort or something, you have to make sure you are discussing payment with them. You have to make sure you're discussing transportation, because with the escort stuff, there's also a higher charge that you could get if they say that they want to be a pimp or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, then it's a different kind of charge. So, and then, with the child predator stuff, it's like, well, you have to make sure that they know you're underage. Like if they ask, I'm 14, or you can say, don't you want to know what age I am? You have to make sure that they know these things before you can get a charge, because if they're meeting up with you and you don't have all of these things, then there's no way to charge these people, which is actually pretty interesting. But yeah, you have to act and at the same time be able to pull these things out of them. So it is a little bit more difficult, I would say.
And I mean, you can't do entrapment, I guess, but the question is, like, is it always like a monitoring, like somebody, like there's like a ding that goes off or notification on somebody's end, and then they come to you, or do you guys know who the bad guys are? And, because like, it's like, To me, that's always like interesting. I was like, does a profile say like your profile is on there?
Right.
It's you on this end.
Right.
Do they have to contact you first, or or knowing that they've already done bad things, does your profile kind of just float out there, like in their direction?
So sometimes they do know who it is, but it depends. Like if I get called to a scene as a patrol officer and someone is saying that, like I had one with a mentally ill kid that they were autistic and they didn't know what they were doing, and someone had saw their profile online and ultimately convinced them to do some pretty bad things. And they had no idea. They're innocent. They don't know. But they didn't want that to happen to somebody else, so they called the police. So when you do a report or something like that, you do some investigating and you find out who the suspect is. But when you do chat ops, like operations, we don't know who they are. A lot of the people that are chatting, what they do is they take their picture and they morph it into a 14-year-old version of themselves, which I'm sure you know how to do with AI. And then, so it is the person chatting. Like it could be a 50-year-old man and they just make him look like he's 16. But they come to you. Basically, you just put like a statement in your bio and you don't say anything. And you just put a profile out there that you're younger. And if that's what child predators like, that's what they go for. They message you and they say, hey, what's up? So it's not like we go out of our way to talk to these people. We're just putting a profile out there and they're the ones that are clicking on it.
It's fascinating because I never thought that, the scheme went that deep as far as like they actually morph their profiles to look the age of the ones that they're trying to lure. Because, you always see like the shows and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, it's like, did you really just like DM somebody at that age looking like you do? Right.
Well, I mean, sometimes they don't have a photo at all, but then, when you're chatting them and they're suspicious, they're like, well, let me see a photo of you. And it's like, okay, well, now I have to make something that looks like I'm 16. In my case, I do look like I'm 16, so I don't have to do anything if I have the certification. But they won't put, like, for me, if I didn't have, like, a class or something, they would not put my picture out there because there's just certain certifications you have to be able to do that. But I did have to sign. There was someone who didn't know kind of what they were getting into, so they made sure I was okay with talking to these guys, and I had to sign a paper basically saying that I understood that they were going to be thinking of me as a 14-year-old because someone was deeply disturbed by the fact that the suspect, thought that they were a 14-year-old. But in my mind, I don't care that they think of me that way because I want to be able to get the guys that think of actual children that way because that's disgusting. Because if it were my kid, I would want someone to be caught. So whatever I got to do. And when they were doing these chat ups, one of the first days I sat in the room was kind of learning and watching them chat. And if they needed me on a phone call or something, I would go in the other room and I would be with experienced people. And then the second day and the third day, they had me go to an apartment complex that was like in the hood that you would never guess there would be a cop at. And so it was me and like a team, like the undercover team for human trafficking. They also worked with the high-tech crimes. And we all went into this room and we would sit there for hours and hours until they said, hey, somebody's on the way. They call and give the location and then the predator comes there. And then the team, I'll be looking out the window like, hey, here I am. And you got undercover people sitting in the parking lot making sure, telling you, hey, this is the car they're in. You got a drone. You can pull up the live footage, making sure they're walking to the room. And then the team goes out and gets them. So it's actually really cool the way that they do it.
That is, and like, so on a perspective, because you're probably going to blow me away, I'm thinking of this like, it's like, oh, this is one or two occasions and stories. Mm-hmm. How often did this happen over your span?
So they do a few chat ops a year because they try to get a lot of people together. I would say with the prostitution, they do that one 2-3 times a year. Same with the child predators. They try to do it as many times as they can, but with getting so many people involved, because like the drone guys, they come from another department because not every department has drones. So it really depends on the type of equipment you need. But when they do those chat offs, they're getting like 3-4 people a day. So it's actually a lot because it usually takes a while to get somebody. And, I had a buddy who was in high-tech crimes and he wanted me to join when he left. But he said, a lot of the time when they're investigating a suspect, it takes them a few months to get these people, and then they have to go, and they can't even, when they go and find out who it is, they go to their house with a search warrant or something, they can't even get them right away because the search warrant is them getting the evidence. So they have to comb through the evidence and get whatever charge they are going to get, or however many as they can get to get this guy off the street. But yeah, they don't, a lot of the times they said they'll go and get the search warrant, and then it's a few months before they can go back and get the suspect. So it does take a while, which is unfortunate, but I mean, that's the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
You have to get you can't get, if you do it a different way, then you're getting maybe innocent people. You know what I mean? So everything's done a certain way, and just got to be patient. But 3-4 people a day is pretty good because you're getting them caught in the act. There's no getting out of that. So
3-4 people a day, that is crazy though.
I mean,
like that's a lot of people.
Some days you only get one, but
yeah,
when they get people like that, it's pretty cool. And they get everybody involved. They get the special operations unit to wait around the corner so that everyone can move in. They get K9 just in case they run. Like, it's pretty cool.
I was gonna say, how many? So say like they got that Hood apartment complex, in that situation and stuff like that. Is that like, do they always have like certain places like they're like, okay, this is like where all this happens?
When we meet up at the beginning of the day, they kind of pull up a map. Usually we meet up at a public school or something like that. But they pull up a map of the area and they'll tell you like what points certain people are going to be at. So yeah, usually everybody does have a place. Like they'll know where which possible locations the suspect is going to go to. I know the one guy, he didn't necessarily want to come to the apartment, but said he would meet me around the block kind of, because I guess he was suspicious. But they have a whole map set up, and they'll be like, okay, this person's going to be on the north side, this person's going to be on the east side, we're going to have 2 guys over here, K9's going to be waiting over there. It is kind of cool the way that they do it, but they really do plan it out, and they do everything that they can to get these guys, so it's really cool.
Is it anything like you see on like the TV shows, like How to Catch a Predator? Because like how much interaction do you have? Like, do they have to, are you in there, like say they walk into the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
Are you with them for like a few minutes, or as soon as they enter in, like the right on their tails and they get them?
I've actually never had them walk in the apartment,
Okay.
because the way that they do it is that they try to make sure they have all of the elements of the crime before the guy even gets there. So as long as the guy shows up, they're getting him as soon as if he gets out of the car and starts walking, they get him, because obviously he's going towards the door. But
yeah.
It's
It's kind of more of a liability by the moment he gets actually in there. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is I can't wear my gear. So in that instance, I did have, my off-duty weapon, which is still a certified weapon that you have to shoot with, but I had it hidden, like either in my pants or like concealed or something. But they did tell me, if he comes in, they'll have someone in the room behind me or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no way I'm gonna be
by yourself.
Yeah. But I know with the prostitution stuff, they did tell us, like, if you have to get in the car or something, like, you would have telltales, like, put your hair up so that we know to move in, or, like, don't ever be alone with the guy, because once you get in the car, I mean, they can chase him, but then they just don't, like, the guy might think you're a cop if someone's chasing him. You know what I mean? So it's like, you just have to be really careful.
What's fascinating is because I had I think it was like, maybe about a year ago, I had learned about like the mafia tell signs and stuff like that. Like, it was always like The Godfather, when you're like, oh, they would pour the wine like a different way to like one person at the table. Like there's different tells and stuff like that. I'm like, it's amazing how they code things with like, you wouldn't think about it before that, but that's fascinating.
It's cool to learn about, and honestly, it was really fun to do. I don't know. I guess I just liked it was cool to like get a break from patrol and do something different. I just like learning, so I'll learn about anything.
Was your heart racing a lot though?
No, I really wasn't scared. I don't know how to put it. I'm very confident, or I was very confident in the partners that I had, or anytime that I have backup, I'm pretty confident in the people that they pick for those units, because they're not just picking your average Joe deputy. They're picking someone that they know is interested in the unit, that has performed very well. So I was confident that I had good backup, so I wasn't afraid at all. And I'm confident in myself, but I'm not gonna like brag. I'm not saying I was a great officer. I just know that if something happened, I don't even have to think twice about it. It's my life or yours, so yeah. It is what it is.
Well, it makes it all feel better when you have a great team around you, which you already
exactly,
emphasized.
And that's the thing, is you're never alone. It's a team effort.
And you were discussing with me before the podcast about how a lot of police suicides have happened in your time in Houston.
Yeah, and
What don't people know?
I think that the thing that people don't see is that law enforcement is not military. There are a lot of veterans that do go to law enforcement, but the sad thing is, yes, we get to go home every night and we're not deployed somewhere, but that doesn't mean mentally that we get to take a break. We have to go to these scenes, and it's easier for me to say this now. At the time, I did not think that it was affecting me, and it doesn't. I don't say like I have problems, but you do kind of have to flush it down. Like there's scenes that you get 12 calls a day, and one scene you go to, a kid could be dying or dead, and then you have to get dispatched to a theft for grandma. And even though it's something small to you, just taking a report, what just happened at your last scene was huge, and now you have to go and deal with a grandma who like lost her purse or something, and it's like, okay, it's still a big deal to her, so you still have to act like it's a big deal, which if it happened to me, yeah, it'd probably be a big deal. But now that I've been in law enforcement, things are materialistic and a life is more important to me. But I think people just don't realize that when you go from call to call and then you have to go home and disassociate with everybody, it's just hard dealing with all of these feelings. And then you have to go home and deal with your own feelings. And you could have all of the people in the world be surrounded by you and you're surrounded by them, and it's still the most isolated job that I think anybody has ever had. And it's terrible because it's like you love the job, but you know that it's like, I gave somebody this analogy, and it's the most stupid thing in the world, but it works. When you have a piece of cake and you really want to eat the piece of cake, but it's probably not the best idea, and then you do it anyway, and you realize even though you thought that it was worth it, you still didn't think that you should do it. It's kind of like that. Like a lot of these people get to go home, but they don't actually get to be present with their families. So,
it's not like you guys are federal agents, or like you had talked about being deployed. In this case, you're there for a certain amount of time. You get to come back to the peace and comfort of your neighborhood, your wife, your kids, your family.
Right, and you're mentally preparing to be deployed, but on a daily basis, you don't know what's going to
happen. But
also,
when you're doing stuff in your neighborhood that you live in, and you're cops in that neighborhood, like I'm not saying that there's ever that retaliation factor, but you live amongst the criminals at that point. So like you got to feel like you're a little bit on edge, I would imagine.
Well, and that's the thing is you're always alert. You're like to this day, and I told my dad this. I do not like when people walk behind me. It freaks me out. I don't know why. I feel like I'm going to be caught off guard. I will literally stop on the sidewalk and wait until somebody passes me. I do not like when people walk behind me. It just freaks me out. I've had friends that they always have to be sitting facing the door or the exits to make sure they know they get like a few seconds notice if someone's coming through the door shooting. You just don't know. Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, and I have a big place in my heart for veterans. It's just that when you go to places like that, you mentally prepare to see, okay, I'm going to war, I'm in infantry, I'm going to see bad things on a daily basis. Even though you're going to be in danger, you don't know what you're going to see. You're always a target. Even if you're just at a gas station getting a drink, there could be someone that just doesn't like cops and comes in there, or, just someone who's erratic or on drugs or something like that, which has happened to me. But you don't know what you're going to see. And the sad part is you see the world differently. You see all of these criminals, and now you don't really have hope for humanity anymore because you see that people that you thought were good just turn evil for no reason. Mm-hmm. So it's sad. And it's like everyone sees things in the news about like all of these assassinations or, some like my mom, she'll call me and be like, well, why do you think that person did that? Or why this or why that? And it's like, sometimes there is no why. People are just evil and it's terrible, but that's how the world is. And I almost wish that if I could go back, I would never not be a cop, but I wish I could see the world as I did before I was a cop, because I used to see it as like this magical place, and now it's kind of like I hope that this doesn't happen. Like I would tell my sisters to not be police officers and I think it's a great job for certain people, but I just don't want that innocence to be taken away from people. But there's got to be somebody to do it, and that's why I say that being any kind of first responder is a calling. And that's, if you get called to do that by God, then that's what you should do.
And it's certainly not a feel for the weak.
No.
I will say that. No, but I like that you use the term innocence kind of getting stripped away there, because I would imagine that's like in all things, EMT, police officers, hospital, firefighters. And I had just recently, our local fire department was just talking about like, hey, since you're in the township, we need volunteers. And they reached out to me and they're just like, you should do it. And I was just like, great if I could find the schedule. I don't think I'm nearly in a good enough shape to do it because I don't picture like, first of all, if I picture myself walking to a burning building, I'd be like, no. But at the same time too, it's like, that's one of those fields where, and I told the guy this too, I was like, it sounds like a great thing, but it's not something I could be 50-50 on. Like I can't be like hit or miss. Like I have to be fully devoted and committed because I was like, this is not one of those professions that you just be like, oh, I'm going to do it today. Like, sure, I want to do it, but like I could bail at any time. And then you show up at a tragic scene and that could shape you. That could change you if you're not fully dedicated. Or it's one of those things too, if you're not fully dedicated to saving people and they send you into like, say you ever get trained enough to go into a burning building. And you get the training, you never had to do it before. All of a sudden, you're certified. You can go into the house. If your first fire happens where you had to rush in, and you think to yourself, like, it's either me or them, and you pause just long enough for somebody else to make a mistake or lose their life. And I will say this because I was just in Wyoming. I loved everything about the hikes that we did. The girl I went with, she planned a lot of this stuff out. Where there was one day we hiked 10,000 feet up to this one mountain. 14,000 feet to another 10,000. We would go on the main trails, but we'd also take these side trails. And it's amazing going into the next 30 years of life because at 29, never had this experience before. I'm used to going on these trips. I could go travel by myself. I could go drive across the country and I've done it before.
Right.
But being on this trail specifically, she had us go down like the horse paths or whatever. So you had the civilian paths and then you had the cooler ones that would leak around, which you knew very few people were going to be walking and hiking down through.
Yeah, because people are lazy.
Yes, and also visibility. All I had was bear spray on me and like a horn away. You're not concealed carrying. You don't know really what you're going to see around every corner.
Right.
The berry bushes are so close to you. You're walking through. You're just trying to make noise, everything else. And I was like, those were the moments. And there was 3 moments on this trip that I can remember that we walked through these tight spaces. You can't see left or right. And you're thinking to yourself, like whether it was early in the morning when the sun's just coming up, you can't see either. And I thought to myself, I have a nephew now. I have a family that relies on me. And I was like, I for the first time in my life, I'm kind of scared.
Yeah.
And it changes your perspective. And I'm sure part of that too, to lead into another conversation is when you got out of the police force here, you also, I don't know if you were just engaged at the time or if you hadn't, but you were making these future plans.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a part of like, hey, I want to start a family. Yeah. Hey, I want to do this. Like, hey, life's kind of precious, especially after what you've seen. On the field.
Ultimately, I had 2 dreams, and one of them was to be a police officer, and the other one was a family. And at that point, it's like, which one's more important? Because right now, policing is not the same as it was, and I get why it's not, but it's way more dangerous than it used to be. And that's the thing is, you have people that are doing the job, and I never thought I would leave, but you have people that are doing the job just because they want health insurance or they want a paycheck. And I know that there were people at my old job that did it because they wanted a paycheck. And you don't know if you're going to have backup because there were times where people were on a hot scene and they needed somebody because they had somebody at gunpoint and the person's around the corner and they're not coming. And that person then says, we're like, why didn't you go? And they're like, I'm not risking my life for another person. Then why are you a cop? Because there are plenty of other jobs where you can do less and get paid way more. That is not the reason you should be a cop because when you become complacent or comfortable, that's when you get killed. And that's the sad part is people just do it just because.
Yeah. And for the people that do things for the money, and I'm not saying you can't do things in safer careers and things that aren't going to affect you, but like in a situation like that, when I said the firefighting, I was like, you're either in or you're out because
you have to be fully committed.
You have to
be fully confident because if you're not, it could get you killed.
And that goes for doctors. That goes for everything. Like
everything, not just police officers. Everything.
But it is crazy to see the people that take paychecks, and we all know them in different fields. We all know them that they're just there for the paycheck, and it's sad.
I mean, look at what happened in York, Pennsylvania, with the hospital shooting. I mean, they were pissed at the doctors, so they went and killed them.
And they just, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, they just had 3 police officers shot again in York County.
On Wednesday.
York County, Pennsylvania, I've heard nothing but bad things about that.
That place is terrible.
Yeah,
it's one of the highest crime rated areas in PA.
So, Gianna, as we move forward, and you're going to continue at least trying to find acting gigs and acting roles, is there still a push to join these unions? Is there still a push to continue to put your headshots out there?
Yeah.
And is that still something that you want to see your name in the lights one day?
I hope one day, but it doesn't happen overnight, so it's going to take a lot of work. I've definitely put my name in for a lot since I moved here, so I'm hoping one of these people will bite. But I've been getting contacted more, so we'll see what happens.
And you were in a Christian kind of union back, I think, when you were like in like high school too, weren't you? As far as acting.
Yeah, that was called Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ. That was kind of a like push to get. They would get like agents to come out there and scouts to watch you. I was a part of that, but I was also a part of a casting group, and that's really what got me into the background acting for Netflix and stuff, and Hulu and stuff like that. So that was more prominent in my life, I think.
How important is your faith to picking certain roles? I understand right now it's just like, well, there's no roles on the table, but like say you got offered like roles, like what are your like, yeah, I'm never going to participate in this role. Like horror films, we talked about The Conjuring and stuff like that. It's not necessarily about like the horror or the religious element in it. I'm assuming there's probably like no's for you, like obviously not going to do this action, not going to do this action in the film. But is there anything that's really like, could you see yourself saying no because of your faith to certain things?
I think I have a lot of morals, and even as a police officer, there were things that I would not do. But with acting, I think if there was a movie that I did not feel comfortable doing or scenes that I did not feel comfortable doing, I would be straight up. And if that means that I don't get the part, then there will be another opportunity. But I think I would definitely do thrillers. I just think I would do horrors, but there are just some that are too demonic for my faith, and I don't think I want to let that demonic in, because once you let it in, and I have heard a lot of stories of people doing, demonic films, and then a bunch of the staff dies. So I don't want to let that force into my life. Mm-hmm. That's just my take on it.
One of the things about thrillers and horror films that I think it's fascinating as a director, because I sit there and I watch, and this is more lighthearted compared to once you've seen, like you talked about being a police officer, and once you've seen things happen, it changes your reality of the world.
Yep.
Mine's more so like once you go through film school or learn about films, it changes your reality of filmmaking, because you sit there the first time with a critic mind per se, rather than like enjoying it for the first watch.
And I do that with the cop shows too.
I can imagine
that's not how that happens, but okay.
Yeah, it's dramatized for TV a lot, I imagine.
I will say the most realistic police show that I've ever watched is The Rookie.
Okay.
That is the most, and they have kind of gotten out of hand, but the earlier seasons, that's probably the most realistic one, I would say.
Shout out to The Rookie. She gets Gianna Tuggle's...
Yeah, The Rookie. It's a great show. And I've heard On Call is pretty realistic too, but I haven't watched that one, so I can't give it my opinion yet.
For me, with thriller films, though, to sit there the first time, or even horror films to sit there with a critic mind, my thing goes to like, oh, okay, that was a cool camera angle. Not too many people are thinking that watching a movie about a camera angle, but I was like, oh, that was cool. And then like I start doing the timing, because timing for audio spikes and for like the jump scares is it has to be perfect.
Right.
And they say there's like a sweet spot like between 7 and 10 seconds is where when the music cuts.
But you can almost guess when they're going to do the jump scares.
Well, because they're 7 to 10 seconds kind of like it's within that time frame that they teach you like that it happens. But I think shooting a horror or thriller, and I have done it before on my channel, but nothing extreme like a Hollywood budget or like a bigger budget by any means. But I think it's cool to see like if say there's a simple shot of somebody like on the ground trying to crawl away and they get sucked back into the vacuum of space. I was like, those are shots I would love to just film. Like you rig them up with a wire or something like that and they just go flying back. Yeah. I was like, I think there's a lot of stuff, and being creative and trying to scare your audience, like I think is such a cool technique to do. Right. Something where if you're doing a documentary or you're doing like a rom-com or like, let's say like a sports show or sitcom or something like that, you don't really get to do. It's not like, oh yeah, we get to appeal to emotion, but we don't get to scare people. I think trying to be a director that's a good horror director, right, and coming up with ideas of how to scare people sitting in theaters, I think that's fun.
It's very creative too. But I feel like a lot of horror movies, it's like they foreshadow into what the scares are going to be. Like when I just watched The Conjuring, there was a part in there where the two little girls in the movie, they were pulling on the phone cord while the mom was on the phone, and they were in the closet. And I'm like, that's going to be like a ghost is going to do that later. I literally turned to the person next to me and I'm like, a ghost is going to pull on that cord later. Like that's what they're foreshadowing. Just like when they show the monkey with the clapping hands. I'm like, that's going to be like possessed by a ghost later. But I feel like they do that a lot in horror films.
They do, and Blumhouse. I like to give Blumhouse a shout out. Now
I love
there's
Blumhouse films.
there's been a few lately, which is like I believe Woman in the Yard. That wasn't so well received for me. But there's a few other ones at Blumhouse. What I love about them is they'll make a film for like $1 million or $2 million, and they'll put it in theater.
And
like,
they're pretty
sure,
good.
it only makes 25 mil, but coming off $1 million or $2 million budget, or even like a $5 million budget, that's fantastic for.
Did
a horror film.
Blumhouse make Oculus? Were they the ones that produced?
Oh, Oculus.
Because I'm pretty sure that was them.
It could have been.
Because that was a freaking fantastic movie, and that was made when Netflix like first came out, along with when Netflix first started making movies. They made Hush. I don't know if you watched that one. That was really good too, but I don't know who produced it.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Blumhouse or not, but what's big for Blumhouse especially is they were able to then get a Five Nights at Freddy's brand.
Right.
Which is crazy that they're that they outbid or whatever. Nobody else wanted to do it. I don't know what that was about, but
they're
like the second one's coming out.
They're getting up there now.
Yeah. But they're still only spending small amounts of money on it, which is just, we talk about Marvel all the time on the channel, and Marvel, they're still spending $200+ million on a budget.
Not great movies.
Recently. That's sad too. They spend $200 million to make a bad movie. But you're spending 200 to 250 mil, which if you do any box office cinematics, you got to at least reach about 600 to 700 million dollars to break even.
Right.
And to me, I'm just like, Marvel's not making that, which is just absolutely crazy.
It is crazy compared to what they used to make. Kind of sad to watch.
It is sad to watch the downfall of really the culture in America a little bit.
Yeah.
There's too many Hollywood sequels and not enough original content.
Yeah, and I don't like when they do I'm going to remake this movie 20 years later, and then it's like disappointing because they hyped it up. I'm like, you should have just left it how it was.
And the best sequel lately that I've seen is Top Gun Maverick. That's the best one I've seen
I love
recently.
that movie. I thought that movie was great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Just watched Happy Gilmore too. That was pretty good too.
I didn't mind Happy Gilmore too. It wasn't as good as the original. At least with Top Gun, you could argue it might have been better than the original. There's an argument.
Okay, I thought the second one was way better than the first one.
So
but that's because they had better cameras now.
Yeah.
So
it's like making Jaws or like another Jaws nowadays.
Yeah.
It's gonna look better.
Yeah.
But then Jurassic World came out, and I'll tell you what, the newest one did not look better than the old original.
I didn't
Jurassic
watch that
World.
one.
The newest one's not worth it. I would not. It made money because it's dinosaurs, but I would not watch it. Well, Gianna, thank you for joining me on the Shield of Hope channel. Where can people find you at on social media or online?
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, any of those, Snapchat. I'm on them all.
Do you want to say your at handle for?
I think my at handle for Instagram is just Gianna_Tuggle. Same with TikTok. Snapchat is a little tuggy, but other than that, you could probably just look up.
Thank you everyone for joining us here on the Shield of Hope channel. Be sure if you like our content, go subscribe, and also feel free to watch the rest of our podcasts or short films.
Sure.